Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for taking your lunch break with Boca Magazine. Today's live chat is presented by 3550 South Ocean, a new luxurious oceanfront condominium building in Palm Beach. I'm Olivia Holaus with Boca Magazine, and today we are joined by three amazing guests who are leaders and visionaries. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you.
Our first wonderful guest is Senada Adzem. Based in Boca Raton, she is an international real estate star whom you've seen on CNBC's Secret Lives of the Super Rich, Fox Business News, and Bloomberg TV, and now Boca Magazine. The same qualities that allowed her to survive the Bosnian War, ingenuity, intuition, and perseverance, are at the heart of an internationally renowned real estate career with sales of more than $1 billion. She is the owner and the founder of the Senada team, a global luxury real estate brand serving exclusive clientele, and the #1 team at Douglas Elliman for Boca Raton and Delray Beach. Welcome, Senada.
Thank you so much, Olivia, and thank you to the Boca Raton Magazine for having us.
Well, thanks for coming. And she is joined by her friends and also collaborators of over 15 years, the creative forces behind the preeminent architectural and interior design firm, GarciaStromberg. Jorge Garcia, the managing principal and CEO's primary focuses are corporate leadership, design, vision, collaboration, and growth development for the firm's philosophical ideals. Jorge is a licensed architect in 13 states with expertise in the design of national and international facilities, including hotel and resorts, commercial, institutional, mixed-use developments, and residential projects. He is a sought-after authority on the realities and challenges clients face in the planning, approval, and entitlement processes found in today's challenging development environment. Welcome, Jorge.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
And last but certainly not least, Peter Stromberg, Principal Design Director and President of GarciaStromberg, and he is the guiding force behind a number of notable national and international projects, bringing to the firm a thorough understanding of contemporary as well as vernacular theories of architecture and the complexities involved in putting projects together. Peter assists in the entire development process, overseeing everything from initial design to presentation drawings and construction. So, wow, that's all I have to say. I mean, you're all at the pinnacle of your fields. So we are thrilled, and it's such a treat to have you join us for lunch today.
Pleasure to be here.
And my first question goes to Peter and Jorge. You know, you've been working together for 25 years. You know, tell us a little bit about your firm and what was the impetus of starting GarciaStromberg?
Well, in about 1987, which is when I founded the firm, I had come from a total diversified background of both an intellectual education at the University of Miami, eventually being a member of a very large organization, very small organization. Then did something that I never dreamed that I would do, is work for a development company. And after that venture, there was nothing left to do. After that organization changed, I went out on my own, trying to figure out how to put all those things together that eventually would become GarciaStromberg. How we got together is Peter was a student at Mississippi State University, came to work for me when I literally, there was nobody else. It was just me and possibly some part-time assistants. And we hit it off right away. And Peter started as an intern working one summer. And I actually was involved in the development field as well. So he literally started out cleaning a project site, which he probably was the best cleaning person we've ever had, like everything else that he does. And then the second year, he came back and he was an assistant to a carpenter. And the third year he worked for me, he said, do you mind if I kind of work in the office this year? And the moment that he got that opportunity and we hit it off, GarciaStromberg began to find a direction.
Well, that's
1988, 89, if I remember correctly. We look very young, but we're a little older than that.
No, you do look great, and you know, wow, a lot of great careers start off as internships. So that's really a great story, Peter. And it's serendipitous. You met and everything kind of fell into place. And, for you, Senada, you have a very different background, but it's worthy of a best-selling book. You came from war-torn Sarajevo. How did you get your start in real estate and, of all places, South Florida?
Well, yes, I came from Sarajevo in Bosnia, and as a teenager, actually, as 15 years of age, I witnessed so much death and destruction that it's actually really nice to be in the field that I am right now, which is oversee creation of new projects and create new things instead of seeing all the destruction. So after I came to the United States, in New York in particular, after finishing my education, I ended up working for Trump International and working on pre-development projects, particularly mixed use. So that was something that I really fell in love with. I understand different aspects of development and architecture, and now, of course, marketing and sales. Serendipitously, I actually ended up in Florida in 2006 to work on a phenomenal project called 1000 Ocean, which was designed by Peter and George. And I had the great honor to work with them. They were truly visionaries, and that was the first contemporary building in Boca Raton. So for me, it was a big shift, a very welcome one, because now I'm truly grateful, particularly in the post-COVID world, to be living in Florida. I feel, as many people do, I'm sure, a little bit safer down here than many other big cities.
Yeah, we've definitely been social distancing in paradise, so we are very lucky.
We're very blessed indeed.
Absolutely. Peter and George, as we're in the midst of a pandemic, how has your work been affected?
Peter.
Oh.
Can Peter hear me?
We can't hear him.
Sorry, I had it muted, guys. My apologies. Familiar task. I mean, from a work standpoint, it's very interesting because from a workload standpoint, we did see several projects go on hold, and we saw others sort of slow down. Fortunately, we were in a position to move people around and shift. And then the interesting part about, and how we look to designing buildings is we're always, if you've been to our studios, it's always about that how that work environment and that space can be very, very flexible. And so we took the task and basically have been able to work pretty successfully, we feel, for the past several months, doing it a little bit virtual, looking forward to kind of adjusting. But the studio environment, I think, allowed us, because the office working environment, how people are doing, I think is going to allow us to project forward. And we're seeing clients and workload on a nice continuous path and potentially picking up. And clients are getting more comfortable with it, and consultants seem to be getting more comfortable with it.
So that's really great. So kind of an optimistic outlook. And, for you, Senada, how has the South Florida real estate market been affected by all of this in the past few months? And what's your take for the second half of 2020?
Sure. So amid the global pandemic, of course, Florida real estate was affected by stay-at-home orders, and people really wanted to ensure that they do follow that. So it was very quiet after the pending sales closed in April. There were some transactions still ongoing, particularly rentals. We had many people coming down from Boston, New York, Chicago, from big cities, who desperately wanted to find a place here. And we took care of that. And then there were also transactions up to $1 million, which obviously people need the homes, and rates are at a historic lows. So we were able to facilitate that as well. Suddenly and interestingly, as of last week, we've seen a tremendous increase in activity. The phones are ringing. The people are out there looking at properties safely, if I may add, because everyone is wearing masks and gloves and being very respectful. So I do believe that each day we're seeing people being not just more optimistic, but more comfortable going out there and wanting to see homes and to buy homes. Having been stuck in homes for 2.5 months, many people were able to reassess their needs and how they want to live. So there is some pent-up demand. And as real estate professionals, we actually, for Florida, we are very optimistic for the upcoming summer.
Yeah, and there's a lot of talk that people from New York and the North are going to be coming down here and setting up their primary residences. You know, are you seeing that trend?
Absolutely. So we're actually seeing a lot of people from New York, from Connecticut, from New Jersey. They all want to come down here. They feel there are many positives to living in Florida. Before it was just you know, tax situation where it's very favorable to corporations and individuals, but now they want low density areas for the most part. They also want the lifestyle. Obviously, it's very nice living down here. You have much more space. And we've started getting phone calls. A lot of them, however, are not yet able to come because the governor's rule is still in place. Whereas if you're coming from the New York tri-state area, you do need to self-quarantine for 14 days. And a lot of them are like, oh, we've just lived through so much, you know, I don't want to self-quarantine for another 14 days. So we're going to wait for a little more. But we are starting to see influx slowly from the Northeast.
Great.
Senada, to piggyback on, draft off of you on that note, we, and you and I talk about it because we talk often and being involved with so many projects, and Peter and I, of course, share notes so many times a day. Trying to be careful not to diminish the impact and the awfulness of the things that have occurred in this world. It says a lot for us to know, and I guess we've had a confirmation of the caliber of clientele that we've seeked out, that are, and day by day, all we are seeing is more and more and more. Maybe we're maybe we're overly optimistic, but we find that there are so many very, very intelligent people in this business that are seeking already, what do we see beyond this? I mean, we can't sit at the moment, and both from a design standpoint, we're being sought out again as to opportunities and projects. How we design them, of course, is important for us to see how we address them, but there's more and more. I think we've got probably in the last, like you said, 2 weeks to a month, easily 10 to 12 opportunities with clients that are seeking for us to do. Part of it, what we do is, of course, the entitlement work and the opportunities, searching out what lies ahead for people who don't see the light at the end of the tunnel as an oncoming train, but as an opportunity to come out the other side better. And we have, as horrible as this all might be, it is nice to see that the betterment of our organization has always been through the overcoming of adversity. We've learned nothing from winning. This overnight success that took us 30 years to do has come from facing them and dealing them. And every time we find a challenging opportunity, like our clients do, that's where the best product comes from. In Peter and I's world, the more we debate, because believe me when I tell you, well, you can see from each of us, we don't look the same, we don't act the same, we don't think the same, we just pursue the same.
Wow, that's really great, great advice, George, and definitely good words of wisdom. And that leads me into my next question. When you are creating spaces, what is your overall main goal that you wish to accomplish? And what trends in architecture and design are you seeing unfold as a result of this global pandemic, both in terms of macro trends and specific design trends? I know that's a twofold question, but, what are you foreseeing in terms of trends moving forward?
Well, I guess first to chime in, it's always interesting with trends. It seems memory is short on some things too. If we all, I think back to when the green build environment and LEED certification was the new word, and all of a sudden you saw the world go to, well, you had certain resorts that were always designed with certain things, and people would only travel and go to those places because of the systems they had in place. And I think you can kind of equate a little bit of that to what we're going through now. And when you talk about, a lot of that design was in the building systems. It wasn't a lot of passive design. It was much more active designs. When we talk about, sensors and things that we should be able to walk into a hotel lobby and get up to our room and into our room without ever touching any surfaces. A lot of that stuff has already been in play. Of course, there's always a cost associated with it. I think we had this discussion on the last time, Senada, that we spoke was, you know, then you've got like hurricane impact windows. When Hurricane Andrew came through here, and we were here for it, and you see that everybody, once it happened, certain things went into act and went into code, but it was so expensive that people sort of went another direction most of the time. Now it's just commonplace. You wouldn't see it. So these trends can take, you know, 15, 20 years to actually fully be engaged. So I think a lot of the systems were already in place. And I think when it comes to planning, it's very interesting that the article, I think in the Times, Elizabeth Diller, talking about, first of all, and as architects, we find it really interesting as we discuss amongst our team, how we design and how we create is really allowing us to see how building spaces should be used. We can operate from our homes, which I'm at right now. George is at the studio. Roger's at his house. Roger's at the studio, and we communicate. But there's always that need then to come in and communicate, see eye to eye, which I think she eloquently said, so that we can basically look across, sketch. I mean, sometimes through this process, we've seen things that normally would take us 2 days in the studio take us 2 weeks. So we're learning and we're adapting. So that inherently is going to adjust how we design buildings and going forward. And you think about large gathering spaces and conference and pre-function spaces and how those are going to be laid out. All of those types of processions in the buildings, we're kind of learning right now as we go along to create first the operational plan and going up. And another thing is sort of off-site construction that we started talking about and getting into. You can still take trades and do it. You know, things become much more isolated, but even the quality gets better. So there's benefits that can come out of those types of things as well.
Well, you know, it's all, you know, such a new normal, you know, and I think that, you know, people are really reevaluating their priorities, so to speak, you know, and Senada, are you noticing a shift in what buyers are looking for when they're purchasing a new property?
Absolutely, things have changed dramatically. What people want now is that there are differences in terms of the style, architectural style that they want, differences in terms of livable space and how that space is utilized. And they've become much more discerning because they're thinking like, look, if I'm gonna get stuck again in my home, and many of them actually acknowledge they were privileged to be stuck, understanding there's so many people out there who lost their loved ones and their livelihoods. So they're like, hey, if I'm gonna spend so much time with my family inside of my home, I need a much more flexible space, much more livable space. And I've noticed a trend, in terms of need for what Peter was just talking about, which is touch-free spaces. They're much more germophobic, if you will, and much more conscious of post-COVID world, but also how the space functions within a home. So many people want now flexible office space that can be converted into a children's playroom. And they want big backyards because in Florida, we can obviously be outside. So they felt very claustrophobic inside. They want beautiful pool areas. And it's very interesting how the priorities have shifted just within 2.5 months. And I do believe what Peter said, which is that post-COVID, and it's going to take years to unfold, there are going to be tremendous needs that buyers will have, not just in terms of spaces we live in, but spaces we work in, like co-working and big open spaces, how we go to hotels, how we go to airports. Things will change dramatically, and that's why I was so excited to have both of them elaborate and shed light also from design perspectives.
Yeah,
I think
go ahead. Sorry, George.
just to touch on the key word, and what Peter and I discuss all the time, the key word I don't know as much as that there is going to be a drastic change in lifestyle, and I know the word new normal comes into play and so on. I think flexibility, which Senada just used, and our ability to be able to design to a flexible level where, just like right now, we're designing parking structures in buildings. As a matter of fact, it's becoming a code requirement that we're designing parking structures to be able to be turned into either livable spaces or office spaces, because the automobile will become obsolete, the gasoline automobile of all things. And we're designing projects to be able to literally become something else. In fact, That's why we've gone off into, and we're really getting involved with off-site construction, which is prefabrication, so that buildings can become literally demountable and reconfigurable, if you will. So I think that is probably more the ability to have learned from what we've been through to be able to adapt, not necessarily to change. If you think we're not going to hug and kiss each other and give each other a big handshake in the future, I can't buy that. I don't think we all learn, and we also, but I don't think any of that's going to happen. But I guess we do have to learn from the fact that what happens if, and this world is totally unpredictable. As you can see, every day something weird is going on. Who'd think that right now people are burning up their own towns and so on? So we have to adapt to, what's going to happen when we have to rebuild that town soon enough. So our projects and our world does no longer contain itself to a home or a small project, but how does it fit into the overall sense of our community?
Wow, that's fascinating. I mean, you're not just thinking short term, you're thinking very long term, and you're really building that infrastructure. So
we're thinking construction is going to be done less and less on site. It's going to be like building an erector set or a Lego set on site, and the work of a general contractor will be to put the project together, and we design the pieces, and it's a kit of parts that's going to be put on site. It's all going to be under a controlled condition. Why not? That's the way we build everything else. Why not build buildings that way?
Fascinating. And Peter and George, one of your projects is the luxury condominium called 3550 South Ocean. What were the design and architectural inspirations for that particular residential condominium building?
Well, first and foremost, in a building and a project like that is capturing, if you're going to buy and you're going to pay the prices to live on the ocean, you want to see the ocean. So I think the first thing was trying to capture that and making those units each feel also individual. And again, not like an apartment, but more like a home. So it was creating and capturing what is the northern, and I think one of the things Senada said too, of why people are coming here, capturing that northern light and capturing that southern light, the east and the west, and the breezes. So a lot of that was kind of about that, and it was really about that indoor outdoor type of living as well, which is obviously what we've been doing down here for so long. And I think why we're going to see an influx of more larger types of things, of amenity spaces. And you look at 3550. Obviously becomes a bit of a jewel box, on the ocean, with the ability to have a fitness center that doesn't need to have that, expansive view, that typical view. It becomes a very sort of elegant and boutique kind of feel. And that idea, and thinking about the scale of that building and thinking about where projects are going, I think is a pretty interesting approach. Private elevators and access points, and getting in from your car and getting into your unit with really not saying we're going to go away from an urbanization or socialization, but it gives that choice, because I think you're going to see, as we always see in any action we see in our world today, there's always going to be the two sides. The people that go, I don't need to wear a mask, I don't need to worry about this, I'm going to go in and I'm going to do these things. And other people in other societies that have done that a bit ahead of us for other reasons. And we think that it's probably just a reminder that those types of buildings like 3550, where you have these individual lobbies, it's not this one big grand lobby. So you have the ability, which some people might have looked at a year ago and gone, well, that's just odd. There's no huge sense of arrival. Well, there's a more boutique and a more eloquent and a much more sort of sanitized, as people might use the word now, type of arrival to get up to my residence in there.
And Senada, are you finding your buyers looking more for contemporary homes? What is the style that you're noticing?
That's a great question, really, because the trend has been ongoing, and the buyers want now contemporary and transitional look. And this was a great case in point, and really a forte of what Peter and George designed, like 1000 Ocean, Alina Residences 3550, Akoya. People love very clean, sophisticated design. They want high ceilings, they want beautiful views, but we've noticed a huge shift away from the old world Mediterranean heavy kind of enclosed dark spaces to very light, bright, open, airy, with open concept plans. And that's why I do believe projects like 3550, like Alina, have been extraordinarily successful.
when you have those challenges, and I think that the reason we've worked with Senada so many years and so successfully, and in subscribing to that, Peter and I have kind of a little, well, we have a bunch of weird little mottos and things that we live by, and one of them is that if somebody drives by one of our buildings and they can say it's a GarciaStromberg building, we failed, because that means we subscribe to something and repetitively achieve something that we shouldn't have done repetitively. Everyone is a unique basis. And so every time we hear people like saying, talk about style, or, you know, the old famous in Boca Raton, Meisner-esque, we had never even heard, I don't even think I ever heard that one in architecture school. We found Senada, and those clients for those buildings came to us and said, whatever you do, we don't want it to look like anything else that's been done before. So of course, when we hear that, and we have a site as challenging as the projects that she just mentioned, Akoya, 3550, 1000 Ocean, those are places that are not about any particular style. They're about taking as much criteria as possible and achieving it in a prioritized fashion. And one of them is to obviously be market successful. And that's where Senada has always been a buy-in. That she writes the sheet music. We don't know what's selling or not selling. Yeah, we can tell just as much as everybody else. But people like Senada and her team are the ones who say, here's the sheet music. Now you play it the way you want to play it, with the rhythm you want to play it. And that's how we design the buildings, to meet those market conditions.
So you're really constantly challenging yourself, and it's also a collaborative effort. My last question, you know, and this one is a fun one. Just from the look of Peter's background with his guitars, maybe he would have been a rock star if he wasn't in the business that he's in. But, you know, if you were in your respective professions, what other career paths do you think you would have liked to pursue? I'll start with Senada.
Okay, so I'll go first. I was a journalist in my previous life, and I think I would go back to that. So definitely either an investigative journalist or a lifestyle journalist. So
Nice. And George?
I would have wanted to be a phenomenal athlete at anything, and I was always second best at all the things that I tried. Or I would have wanted to be in the theater, but I was shown off by both my daughter, who told me, don't try this again. She ended up in the theater, and my son, a phenomenal hockey player, who knows that I can't do that either. But that's what I wish I could have done if it weren't for what I'm doing now. And now I'm jealous of Peter, because I would have loved to have enjoyed the ability to play music and write music and do what he does. So he makes me quite jealous, but at least he knows I love it more than anything else.
That's great. And Peter?
Self-evident, I guess. I'm trying, as my wife says, what are you doing with that? I mean, you're not gonna make any money at it. So what are you doing with it? And I said, yeah, it's one of those things where, you know, as my kids were all growing up, I put it away for many, many years, and had the ability to pull it back out. And guitars obviously surround my home studio, the studio in West Palm Beach. And I think more than ever right now, this sort of transition has taught me that I think it's going to continue to influence, and I think that's kind of cool to go back and influence what we're doing as architects right now and how we present in it. But if I could be anything, I'd probably be sitting somewhere on a beach playing acoustic guitar, drinking a beer. I mean, that would be it.
Well, we're not too far from the Keys, so.
We're not.
Thank you so much, everyone. This was such a treat. Definitely my favorite lunch in a very long time. And we really appreciate you joining us today.
Thank you so much.
thank you so much. We really appreciate you.
Thank you. And thank you to our viewers. Have a wonderful weekend, and join us next time for another lunch break with Boca Magazine. Bye.
Yeah, take care.
Bye.